Well, hello, I'm CG Funk, and it's so great to have you join us on this episode of Outside the Room. We do want to thank Massage Heights, who is our exclusive sponsor for this show. Today we're going to talk to Ann Williams, who has a very rich history in massage, aesthetics, and bodywork, and she is going to share with us some of her knowledge about aromatherapies and essential oils. So let's get to it. Ann Williams, welcome back to Outside the Room. How are you doing today?
Great. Hey, CG. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. You know, it was so fun talking to you last episode regarding how we become better massage therapists and the difference between competency and excellence and owning the story of our hands, which I just love that saying. And I wanted to bring you back because you have some great projects that you're working on right now with your new business, Massage Mastery. And so why don't you share what's going on in your world with your husband and you and your work?
Okay. So about 2 years ago, we started MassageMastery.Online, and it's a digital publishing company where we do interactive digital textbooks and this really vivid form of online continuing education. And the whole idea is to integrate the learning. So you always have video and text, learning games. There are these fun engagement opportunities that you can't have anywhere else but in an online environment, but in a new way, using a really exciting digital platform.
Yeah, you know, and your book, I think you have a copy of it there. Why don't you hold it up? This book has been used. I mean, when was the first? Oh, move it a little so we could see. There we go. When was the first edition of this book?
So the first edition came out in 2006.
Yeah.
And then it came out as a second edition in 2014. And now in the third digital edition, that came out just this year.
Well, you know, and even if you are already a massage therapist or esthetician and practicing, you can have access to this book by visiting your website and paying the fee, right? And getting it all online. And I'll tell you, her Spa and Bodywork textbook has incredible information in it. I still use it as a resource. I probably have the 2006 version, so I need to update to the digital. But that's amazing. And so that's really going to help schools face the new world, really, that's happening today with a lot of online education and online technology. So what a great project. And we'll be interested in learning more about that later, you know, after this year, and you could tell us, come back and tell us, you know, what's been happening with it. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, CG. I appreciate it. And it's been an incredibly fun project and a huge learning experience. But I think that people will love what we're doing. It's really cool and it's really different.
Yeah. And I've been lucky to take a couple of those classes, and so I really thought they put together well. It's a great way to learn, and you get a lot of good information too. So that's amazing. Yay, Ann and Eric. Yay. I know. You know, I like to refer to you, Ann, as an unsung hero of our profession. Oh. And what I mean by that is that in the last 30 years, because you and I went to school about the same time, but we didn't meet, of course, till several years later. But in the last 30 years, you have made so many contributions through your work to our profession. And you've really done these in the background, honestly. And so a lot of people don't even know what those contributions are, or don't know how much you've given to our profession and to the massage industry overall. And one of those things is your knowledge and work in aromatherapy and with essential oils. And so first of all, how did you become interested in essential oils? Tell us like that part of the story.
Well, I really became interested in aromatherapy before I became a massage therapist. I was at a country fair, CG, in my hippie days, my hippie youth, and I was dancing around a fire, and somebody came over and dotted my forehead with frankincense. And I just remember thinking to myself, what is this? And how do I get more of it? this is amazing. I kept trying to get my nose up to smell it better. And so I finally walked over to her and said, what did you put on my forehead? I love this stuff. And she was like, oh, I'm an aromatherapist. This is frankincense. And she told me a little bit about it. And she invited me to a class she had, and I went to her class. And then I went to a whole lot of more classes on aromatherapy. And that's how I got my beginning. But my aromatherapy knowledge and experience really took a big shift with my first husband, now a good friend. Who is a botanist and plant taxonomist, and he is a true international expert in aromatherapy. So I got to do a lot of travel with Keith Shaw and going on medicinal plant and aromatherapy projects all around the world. And I did that with him for a number of years.
Yeah, I'd love to get to some of the recent research that you have you've discovered and have that shared with our listeners and viewers, because I think when people look at aromatherapy and essential oils, they don't understand the different deeper layers of the effect that this has on us as human beings, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And those are some of the things you learned on these trips with Keith. I mean, from what I understand in the stories that you shared, you not only learned about the plant itself, or the tree or the bush, you learned the origin of that plant, obviously the Latin names, which we don't need to get into today. And then you also learned about the indigenous purposes of the plant, the beliefs in how the plant serves as a healing tool. You learned how it affects the body physically. You learned how it affects the body mentally. And then you also learned the spiritual aspects of these oils that are derived from the various plants and trees and bushes, and how those were used with indigenous folks as well. Am I summing that up pretty good?
Very well. Yeah. So I think one of the things that Keith really got me excited about was ethnobotany, like the way that different cultures around the world use plants and the importance, the meaning that those plants had to them. So, CG, because we're good friends, like I'm very into the spiritual symbolism of plants and how plants develop a story that can change your life as a human. One of the plants that I love is lavender. Everybody loves lavender. And I call lavender the noble heart. And it's really interesting because in lavender's history, unlike many plants, it is not attributed to a specific god or goddess in the region where it was originally grown, which is the Mediterranean region. And that's because it was commonplace. It grew everywhere like a weed. So we understand in our modern culture this amazing sort of plant, which is lavender, and how we can use it for body, mind, and spirit. So what I think really encapsulates this whole spirit of lavender is this Serbian saying, and it's be humble, for you are made of earth, be noble, for you are made of stars. And lavender has this incredibly humble beginning. But now, as it's grown and the more that people understand it, we realize that it's made of stars, that it comes to us with this certain sort of magic that no one can explain, except that it is wildly and has been wildly popular since the 1920s. So when you think of lavender, think of bringing your noble heart to a situation. And your noble heart, of course, is the very best heart that you can bring. So that's just one example of sort of a cultural story of a plant. You want another one?
Well, absolutely. So one of the things that's interesting about lavender, and then let's do another one, is that, it's gained in popularity and use so much in the last 20 years. So most human beings gravitate towards this. There is something very special about it. And I know that it has a lot of great benefits also that it brings to us when we use it in various ways. but there is something very spiritual
now
about
we can kind of combine that research about the mind with the cultural history, because lavender is an amygdala soother. And everybody sort of knows the amygdala. It has a lot to do with emotional responses, especially to things that are fearful. So people call the amygdala, or psychologists do, the smoke detector of the brain. It's constantly on the lookout for anything that might be scary. And the more and more scary stuff that you're exposed to, like the news, the more hyper vigilant the amygdala becomes. It starts to view more and more stuff as scary. And when your amygdala is on high lookout alert, you feel anxious. And think about the level of anxiety that all of us feel. Well, if you smell lavender, if you do inhalations of lavender, if you put it in a mist and mist it over yourself and inhale the mist, if you diffuse it in your workspace or your living space, it takes down the charge of a hyper-vigilant amygdala. It helps you reduce your anxiety and view less stuff as scary. So the thing is, though, it's got to be a pure form of lavender, and we don't really have time to talk about synthetics, but they're everywhere in America. So we have to be really careful about our source for lavender if we want it to have its amygdala soothing effects.
I love that. And I remember, because, you taught me a lot about aromatherapy, back in the day. And one of the things you always used to say is like, don't do the synthetics because they're the scents are made in a factory in New Jersey, is what you used to say, as opposed to coming from.
They're evil.
Yeah.
They're bad for you.
Right. So those aren't good. So you guys, you need high grade therapeutic oils to do all the things that Anne is going to suggest in this show today. All right. So that's great. So basically, lavender people universally love this scent and they gravitate towards it, but there is real science behind how it affects our brain to calm our anxiety and stress.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about Amyris. Amyris balsifimira is the botanical name. Amyris is grown in Haiti, and it's this small little spindly looking tree. And the aromatherapy community has never gravitated towards Amyris because someone somewhere, some famous aromatherapist who shall not be named, said that Amyris was like a bad version of sandalwood and smelled a little bit like urine. So generations of therapists have sort of stayed away from Amyris, and I was one of them. And then one day I was dealing with something very challenging in my life. And for some reason, I was buying essential oils and I was like, I'm going to get some Amyris. I need to give this oil a chance. And I don't know why I felt that. But then I got it and then I smelled it and it just spoke directly to my heart. So I started to research its cultural history. Well, in Haiti, it's called torchwood. And the reason is the wood has so much essential oils, and essential oils are flammable, that they could light it easily. So they would tear a branch and light it off as a torch and use it to navigate through the dark island. They would also use it when they were fishing at night to light their boats up. And in Haiti, torchwood represents spiritually resilience. It's the light held against the darkness. So in this challenging time for me, it was speaking to me and saying, I am the light in darkness, and I will help you find your way forward on this dark path, no matter how dark it is. Just hold me aloft and follow the flame.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
So I'm a big Amyris fan, and if you look at the synergies that I suggest for people or the blends, they're full of Amyris. I'm like, we all need more resilience in this challenging world. And if you look at the brain research on Amyris, it's not very widely researched. It's a definitive neurosedative. So it absolutely it doesn't tranquilize, that's too strong a word. It softens the charge of your central nervous system and just takes you down, takes you back a notch. So as opposed to that glass of wine you might want to drink, you can just diffuse a little Amyris in your work or living space.
All right. Well, I'll try that. You know.
And let's do one more. Let's do frankincense, which is the first oil that I was introduced to, and has an amazing cultural history. So frankincense, in the ancient world, there were 5 species of frankincense producing tree resin. So to get a frankincense essential oil, at certain periods, you put slits into the bark of the tree, of the frankincense tree. It bleeds these tears, this resin, and it uses the resin to heal its bark. And on an interesting side note, it's a great essential oil for the skin. It's very wound healing. So the tree uses it the same way that we can use it for the physical body. So in the ancient world, frankincense is being traded, and it's being traded throughout the Red Sea region. So this is the time it's being traded up to Egypt. It's being traded in Mesopotamia, all the Mesopotamian countries. It's growing in Ethiopia and Oman, what we think of as Saudi Arabia now. And throughout the region where it's traded, it is ascribed to sun gods and goddesses. So it's burned in honor of Ra in Egypt. They would burn it at sunrise to welcome the sun into the sky each morning. It's burned in honor of Shamash in Babylonia, where it's burned to honor his all-seeing power. And frankincense becomes sort of understood as transcendent awareness. And that's a big kind of fancy word, but what it really means is you can hold the big picture and you can hold the details at the same time. So frankincense is a wonderful essential oil to use during meditation, but it's also wonderful to just use anytime, to mist yourself, diffuse, put in your massage lubricants and smell. And when you start to look at the research around frankincense for the mind, frankincense is a neurosedative, but it does another amazing thing. It's a serotonin and dopamine balancer. So we all know serotonin, that's about mood enhancement, right? Those are feel-good chemicals. And dopamine's the same. It's for our reward system. It tells us that we want more of something. So what frankincense does is it balances those 2 neurochemicals when it's inhaled. So if you need your brain to be a little bit more balanced at your brain chemistry, this is a great essential oil to use. So think of it as the beauty of the sun shining on you and balancing your mind and spirit.
That's beautiful. And you guys, you just got some scientific information, you just got, origin information, you got old usage information, and you also got a little of the spiritual side of oils. And she's like an encyclopedia, Anne is. So, Anne, just to wrap all this up, because it was frankincense, it was lavender, and it was
Amyris.
Amyris. I wanted to say the stone, amethyst, Amyris. So when you're, for our massage therapists and estheticians watching the show, tell us like 3 ways that are really effective to use these on themselves, just self-care.
Okay. So I would say, first of all, get a little electric diffuser, put a little water in it, and add 6 total drops. You can blend those oils together or you can use them alone. Put 6 drops in it and let it diffuse through your working or living space. You'll register it for maybe 10 minutes and then you won't smell it anymore, because that's how our smell receptors work. But it's working on you even when you can't smell it. It works at ambient levels. even when it's not consciously detectable at low levels, it's working on our mind and emotions and helping us to just feel better in our world. Eric's always saying to me from his office, can you bring me some aromatherapy for my office? And it's like, he can feel it, even though he doesn't really know what's happening, it's happening. The other way that I love to use them is in a little mist bottle. So you get a glass bottle with a fine mist top, and for every ounce of water in the bottle, you want 12 to 24 drops of total essential oil. And I like to add 1 or 2 tablespoons of grain alcohol, like a plain vodka, because it just gives the mist a little bit of sparkle. And you just shake it and mist above your head and shoulders, and then just inhale and maybe repeat a positive affirmation to yourself, like, I bring my noble heart to the moment, and just let yourself have a sacred pause. So that's way number 2. And way number 3 is to have somebody give you a great aromatherapy massage by putting 12 to 24 drops in 1 ounce of massage lubricant.
You know, what I love about those, of course, getting the massage, because we all love getting massage, but I also love about the electric diffuser and also the mist is this isn't time consuming. It, you know, and I think that we try and think about our health and wellness in bigger segments of, oh, I've got to run for 20 minutes, or I've got to, you know, whatever, you know, do my CrossFit for an hour. But really, these are easy ways to integrate into just our daily lives in moments. It's just a moment, and they have a big impact over time.
Yeah, it's like self-care in the background. You can be doing whatever it is you're doing, and they're still acting on you in positive ways.
I love it. Well, Anne, thanks for all the great information. I really enjoyed seeing you again today.
Great to see you, and always fun to talk about aromatherapy and aromatic plants. Thank you, CG.
Thanks, Anne. See you later. Well, that was a wonderful conversation with Anne Williams, and I really appreciate you joining us. I'll look forward to seeing you next time on Outside the Room. From my heart to your heart, namaste.